I am sitting in a stick hut in the park. Today, I'd like to talk with you a bit about medical freedom. I do a radio show called Medical Freedom. And I'm asked sometimes, what is medical freedom? And it's really a right that we don't have, but we should. One of our founding fathers, signer of the Declaration of Independence, was Dr. Benjamin Rush, and he urged for a provision to be made for medical freedom, just as there was being made a provision for religious freedom. He wasn't heeded, and today we live in a world of forced vaccination, pain patients being stripped of their pain medicine, the war on drugs, contested reproductive rights, people who actually are injured or killed in the hospitals as they beg the practitioners either not to give them a certain medicine or treatment, or to give them a certain medicine or treatment, and they are ignored or disregarded or refused. And this shouldn't be. It just shouldn't exist. There should be no question about our bodies, ourselves. I believe one of the reasons that Dr. Rush's suggestion was not heeded is because at the time and presently, our country is very much dependent on a system of slavery. So the idea of talking about self-ownership, about the idea that being the life force in a human body makes you the owner, commander, and captain of that body, the definitive expert in your own body. That wasn't a road they wanted to go down. That was not a can of worms they wanted to open up. And as comedian Bill Hicks said, it's not a war on drugs, it's a war on personal freedom. War on drugs and drug prohibitions do nothing but exacerbate situations, make them worse, and make them infinitely more dangerous. We've seen it in the alcohol prohibition. During the height of the alcohol prohibition, why, there were booze out there that could kill you in one shot. It's interesting now with the carfentanil being released on the street, very interestingly. I think it's very interesting because right now, nationwide, it's inevitable. Cannabis is going to be legal. The cat's out of the bag. This is not a harmful substance, and your government has been lying to you for profit. But now you have a whole system built around its prohibition. You have police forces that rely on the revenue of the property seizures, of the incarceration, of the arrests. We have a prison for profit system here. And that system is going to starve without a drug prohibition. So that's why I'm here to say there's no opioid epidemic. There isn't. There's an epidemic of your system, your law enforcement system, having this dependency on the war on drugs. Mind you, your law enforcement should be there to protect and serve you. Okay, they should be in place to protect you from violent criminals that would like to harm you or disrupt your way of life. And they're being taken away from those duties so much in pursuit of this war on drugs for profit. Because this is a war with spoils. There's spoils of this war. You know, we had a fancy car in Hudson, and it was the D.A.R.E police car, and I think it was like a BMW or something fancy like that. And they painted it up to say, paid for by a local drug dealer or something to that effect. And, you know, that's not, we shouldn't be parading around in the spoils of war. And that's what it is. Ironically, the car was hit by, I guess, somebody who was high, but, yeah. Karma. It's very interesting now that you have the carfentanil situation, which is deadly, which is a synthetic chemical that is in no way related to the natural medicine that is opium, that is opiates. Opium comes from a plant, and law enforcement in this country has been pretty successful in eradicating the most natural, safest form, which is the smokable opium. And it's largely unavailable due to ignorance, because most people don't know that it's flower sap and it grows. It's pretty easy to come by if you want to just spend a little effort. So you have a situation where like heroin gets a really bad rap. It really shouldn't. It shouldn't get a bad rap, because it used to be a standard medicine. It was a medicine designed for children. It was, every time they try to take standard opium and make it less addictive, they make something else that's like a little more addictive. So they never really should have strayed from the source of the pure opium. Although I shouldn't say that, because there's people I know from the chronic pain community, like I found people who say, like fentanyl, I mean real fentanyl, not the carfentanil, real fentanyl, it's a lifesaver for them. And other people who couldn't take it, and other people who might be able to take morphine but not oxycodone, or so on. Everybody is so different. Like human physiology is so diverse that it's important that we have a lot of different kinds of medicines out there, because they have to find what works for them. And nothing should ever be taken away just because it doesn't work for some people, or maybe it doesn't work for a lot of people, because there's going to be somebody out there who does need it. That brings me to another point. With medical freedom, it really, if we had the right of medical freedom, we would also have a very American attitude of being proactive about knowing our health, knowing ourselves, doing a lot of our own research, and working with our doctors when we work with a doctor, working with them together as equals. And we don't see that a lot in our society. We see doctors who pick up attitudes because the patient has done some research, or the patient has years of knowledge about their condition and expresses that to their doctor. So I'd like to see, and people say, well, this is impossible, it's just too big, but a constitutional amendment, like we should have a right of medical freedom, just like we have a right of religious freedom, or freedom from religion. We should even have the right to have freedom from medicine, like those people, like the Christian scientists who want to eschew all medicine. Well, that's their right. It's both their religious freedom right and their medical freedom right. But it's really not too big, because we as humanity are evolving, and I think we're kind of evolving further and further away from religion as a social system as it has been. Religious freedom is going to the wayside, because we're not always going to be able to rely on the religious freedom provision. We should have a philosophical freedom, a ideological freedom, and a medical freedom. But we really need the right to own our own selves, and not have a medical system step in and say, this is only how much health you can have. I mean, you would think a person who's lived decades with a chronic health condition, who knows exactly what treatment that they need when they're in crises, would have no problem being listened to when they have to go to an emergency room to have access to those medicines. But a lot of times they find themselves embattled or ignored. I think medical freedom would change the face of medical liability as it is, because on one hand, you would have to defer more control to the patient and more responsibility to the patient. However, it would also mean that the doctor is liable for the responsibility to the patient. I would see like doctor-patient interactions being where both parties kind of agree on a contract, on a procedure, on a course of action for that patient's treatment that they both agree on ahead of time, that they both know what's going to happen. And if that doctor fails to deliver on that contract or deviates or does something different from what they are getting the patient to understand that they are doing, then the doctor is definitely liable. But right now the liability seems to follow the regulations. It's like if anybody dies right now that has opiates in their system, it's going to be considered an opioid-related death and tacked to those statistics, even though it may not have actually been the cause of death. For many people, it's the cause of life. Wow. I hope you all keep your chins up and just think about the fact that medical freedom can and should and very well must be a part of our future if we are to survive as a free nation. Everybody has a vested interest in this. I'm talking to you, vaccine choice people, pro-choice people, chronic pain patients. I'm talking to everybody. I'm talking to you, recreational drug users, everybody. We all have a car in this race. Every human being. We all have a car in this race. The engine's coming at perfect timing. I'm attuned with the automobiles.